Have you ever wondered how humans, of all creatures, came to dominate the entire planet? We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not even the smartest. And yet, here we are. It's kind of funny when you think about it. A chimpanzee could easily beat us in a fight, but we've built cities, empires, and even rockets that fly into space. How did we do it? How did mere humans rise above lions, whales, even nature itself? And here's the thing. It wasn't just brute strength or luck. It was something much deeper. Something that started tens of thousands of years ago. Something that made us imagine, believe, and create realities that exist only because we collectively agreed they exist. Money, nations, religions, companies, all of these are just stories we told ourselves. But why do these stories matter so much? And how do they shape the life you're living right now? In this video, we're going to dive deep into Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, but not just to summarize it. We'll explore its ideas through real-life examples, science, history, psychology, and my own reflections along the way. By the end of this journey, you'll see that humans didn't just survive. We imagined, we created, and we transformed reality itself. And you can use these insights to understand your own life, decisions, and the world around you in a whole new way. Now, let's dive into the heart of the cognitive revolution. What made Homo sapiens different from other species wasn't strength or speed or even the tools we had. It was something invisible, internal, inside the human mind. The ability to imagine, to create ideas, concepts, and stories that didn't exist anywhere outside our brains. This wasn't just daydreaming. This ability allowed us to form shared beliefs, myths, legends, gods, spirits, things that could unify entire groups of people who had never met each other. And when humans could believe in the same thing, something magical happened. Cooperation on a massive scale. You see, animals cooperate too. Wolves hunt together, bees build hives, ants organize colonies. But here's the difference. Their cooperation is limited to the present and to what is tangible. A wolf doesn't follow a plan for next month. An ant doesn't trade or create imaginary concepts. Humans? We imagine futures that don't exist yet. We trade, we plan, we negotiate, all because we can believe in ideas that aren't physically real. Anthropologists have traced evidence of this ability back tens of thousands of years. Humans began creating art, performing rituals, and telling elaborate stories around campfires. Each story wasn't just entertainment, it was a framework for trust and coordination. Imagine sitting by that fire, listening to a tale of a spirit who punishes the selfish. You follow the story because it's believable, and suddenly your behavior aligns with the group. This is how social order was created long before governments, laws, or police. And it didn't stop at spirits or myths. Humans began imagining entities that exist purely in collective agreement. Money, corporations, social hierarchies, even nations. These things have no physical form outside our minds, yet they have incredible power. Millions of people act together, trust each other, and build entire civilizations, all because of shared imagination. Imagine the implications. A small group of humans could now cooperate far beyond the size of a typical tribe. They could hunt together, share resources, defend territory, and plan for the future, all by trusting stories and shared beliefs. This wasn't just survival. This was the creation of culture, society, and civilization. And think about the cognitive leap that made this possible. Theory of mind. Humans realized that others have thoughts, beliefs, and intentions different from their own. This insight allowed for deception, gossip, planning, and negotiation. Yes, humans lied, gossiped, and schemed, but that same ability to think about what others think enabled unprecedented collaboration. Imagine it, a group of humans planning a hunt. One person might say, "We'll corner the mammoth from that side while the others drive it toward the pit." Everyone understands the plan, everyone knows their role, and it works. Other animals coordinate, yes, but only in the moment. Humans could plan weeks, months, even years ahead because we could imagine the future. And this is where stories became critical. Shared myths, rituals, and taboos created trust between strangers. They provided moral frameworks and social rules. They told people what was acceptable and what was forbidden. These invisible rules were stronger than brute force because humans wanted to follow them voluntarily. And it didn't stop at survival or hunting. Humans applied imagination to explore, trade, migrate, and innovate. They began experimenting with new tools, new social structures, new ways of living, and every success reinforced the power of collective imagination. Harari explains that gossip played a surprisingly central role. Think about it. Gossip isn't just idle chatter. It's a way of sharing information about who can be trusted, who is loyal, and who isn't. It's how humans enforced social norms and maintained cohesion in groups far larger than any other primate could manage. And yes, humans were complicated then. Some cheated, some lied, some broke the rules. But the incredible thing is that these stories, myths, and social norms kept society functional anyway. They created order from chaos, not with violence alone, but with shared belief. And this is the genius of the cognitive revolution. Humans weren't just thinking individually. They were thinking together, imagining together, believing together. And through imagination, we became something entirely new. The species that could shape reality, organize societies, and transform the planet. Imagine the world today. Every corporation, every government, every religion, every law, it exists because humans can imagine something together and believe in it. And it all started here, tens of thousands of years ago, with humans around campfires telling stories and discovering the unimaginable power of imagination. The cognitive revolution wasn't just a historical event. It was a shift in consciousness. The moment humans became aware of possibilities beyond the present, the ability to create, to plan, to cooperate, and to dream. And that gift is still the most powerful tool we carry today. Chapter 1. The Cognitive Revolution. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the Earth 70,000 years ago. There are no cities, no highways, no computers, no books. Humans are just another species trying to survive. Not the strongest, not the fastest, certainly not the cleverest. We're small, fragile, and entirely ordinary. And yet, somehow, we rose above every other creature. How did this happen? How did humans, weak and unremarkable, outlive lions, mammoths, and wolves? The answer lies not in our muscles, but in our minds. Something invisible sparked inside the human brain, something no other species had ever experienced. This spark was imagination, the ability to picture things that don't exist, to invent stories, myths, spirits, and gods. And these stories, they weren't mere entertainment. They were tools. Tools that would allow humans to cooperate, plan, and dominate. Imagine it. A small group of humans sitting around a fire under the dark sky. Wolves howl in the distance. A child shivers. And the adults tell tales of spirits, gods, ancestors, things that couldn't be seen, touched, or measured. And yet, everyone listens. Everyone believes. That belief, it was power. Stories became the glue that held societies together. They allowed humans to trust each other, even strangers, to cooperate in groups far larger than any other animal could manage. A group of 20, a tribe of 100, maybe thousands, all working together because of shared belief. Anthropologists call this the theory of mind, the ability to understand that others think differently than you do. And this ability changed everything. Humans could plan hunts, coordinate defenses, trade goods, and build social structures that no other species could even imagine. Imagine the implications. A species that could barely survive the night, suddenly ruling continents, organizing hunts, trading, creating rituals, building networks of cooperation that would eventually allow civilizations, kingdoms, and empires. And yes, it's slightly absurd to think about it. Weak humans using nothing but imagination and stories to conquer the world. But that's the genius of the cognitive revolution. Think about it. Every ritual, every myth, every imagined god or spirit was an experiment in human cooperation. They tested trust, loyalty, obedience, and it worked. Humans weren't just surviving. They were learning to organize, to predict, to influence the world around them. And this didn't happen overnight. It took thousands of years of small discoveries, trial and error, gossip, myths, rituals. The fire wasn't just warmth. It was the stage for humanity's first laboratories of social experimentation. These early humans were creating something invisible yet unstoppable. Culture. Shared beliefs, values, norms, and rules that could unite strangers. Imagine that. Total strangers agreeing on a single idea, cooperating, building together. That's unprecedented in the animal kingdom. And the mind didn't stop there. Once humans could imagine gods and spirits, they started imagining things even more abstract, things that exist purely because we collectively agree. Money, nations, social contracts, laws. Invisible, yet incredibly real. And here's the astonishing part. This power didn't just shape history, it shapes your life today. Every choice you make, every belief, habit, goal, dream, is influenced by stories you inherited, stories you tell yourself, and stories you share with others. I like to think about it. Even a simple $100 bill, it's just paper, yet it has immense power because humans believe in it. A religion, a corporation, a government, all built from shared imagination, The same force that allowed Homo sapiens to conquer the world 70,000 years ago. And it's not just history. Think about social media, communities, brands, politics. Humans are still doing the exact same thing, sharing stories, creating trust, building invisible networks. The mechanism hasn't changed, only the scale. And here's the secret. You have this power too. Your imagination, your ability to believe, your ability to tell stories and connect is the same power that allowed humans to dominate the earth. Understanding that gives you insight. It gives you freedom. Freedom to choose which stories guide your life and which you can let go. So as we sit here, stepping back in time, imagine the flickering firelight, the shadows dancing on the walls of a cave. Hear the crackle of flames, the whispers of ancestors, the excitement of discovery. This is where humans stopped merely surviving and started shaping reality itself. And as we journey through the cognitive revolution, pay attention. Notice the sparks of imagination, the power of shared belief, the invisible threads connecting the past to your life today. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to see the incredible potential lying dormant in your own mind. Now, let's dive into the heart of the cognitive revolution. What made Homo sapiens different from other species wasn't strength or speed or even the tools we had. It was something invisible, internal, inside the human mind. The ability to imagine, to create ideas, concepts, and stories that didn't exist anywhere outside our brains. This wasn't just daydreaming. This ability allowed us to form shared beliefs, myths, legends, gods, spirits, things that could unify entire groups of people who had never met each other. And when humans could believe in the same thing, something magical happened. Cooperation on a massive scale. You see, animals cooperate too. Wolves hunt together, bees build hives, ants organize colonies. But here's the difference. Their cooperation is limited to the present and to what is tangible. A wolf doesn't follow a plan for next month. An ant doesn't trade or create imaginary concepts. Humans? We imagine futures that don't exist yet. We trade, we plan, we negotiate, all because we can believe in ideas that aren't physically real. Anthropologists have traced evidence of this ability back tens of thousands of years. Humans began creating art, performing rituals, and telling elaborate stories around campfires. Each story wasn't just entertainment, it was a framework for trust and coordination. Imagine sitting by that fire, listening to a tale of a spirit who punishes the selfish. You follow the story because it's believable, and suddenly your behavior aligns with the group. This is how social order was created long before governments, laws, or police. And it didn't stop at spirits or myths. Humans began imagining entities that exist purely in collective agreement. Money, corporations, social hierarchies, even nations. These things have no physical form outside our minds, yet they have incredible power. Millions of people act together, trust each other, and build entire civilizations, all because of shared imagination. Imagine the implications. A small group of humans could now cooperate far beyond the size of a typical tribe. They could hunt together, share resources, defend territory, and plan for the future, all by trusting stories and shared beliefs. This wasn't just survival. This was the creation of culture, society, and civilization. And think about the cognitive leap that made this possible. Theory of mind. Humans realized that others have thoughts, beliefs, and intentions different from their own. This insight allowed for deception, gossip, planning, and negotiation. Yes, humans lied, gossiped, and schemed, but that same ability to think about what others think enabled unprecedented collaboration. Imagine it, a group of humans planning a hunt. One person might say, "We'll corner the mammoth from that side while the others drive it toward the pit." Everyone understands the plan, everyone knows their role, and it works. Other animals coordinate, yes, but only in the moment. Humans could plan weeks, months, even years ahead because we could imagine the future. And this is where stories became critical. Shared myths, rituals, and taboos created trust between strangers. They provided moral frameworks and social rules. They told people what was acceptable and what was forbidden. These invisible rules were stronger than brute force because humans wanted to follow them voluntarily. And it didn't stop at survival or hunting. Humans applied imagination to explore, trade, migrate, and innovate. They began experimenting with new tools, new social structures, new ways of living, and every success reinforced the power of collective imagination. Harari explains that gossip played a surprisingly central role. Think about it. Gossip isn't just idle chatter. It's a way of sharing information about who can be trusted, who is loyal, and who isn't. It's how humans enforced social norms and maintained cohesion in groups far larger than any other primate could manage. And yes, humans were complicated then. Some cheated, some lied, some broke the rules. But the incredible thing is that these stories, myths, and social norms kept society functional anyway. They created order from chaos, not with violence alone, but with shared belief. And this is the genius of the cognitive revolution. Humans weren't just thinking individually. They were thinking together, imagining together, believing together. And through imagination, we became something entirely new. The species that could shape reality, organize societies, and transform the planet. Imagine the world today. Every corporation, every government, every religion, every law, it exists because humans can imagine something together and believe in it. And it all started here, tens of thousands of years ago, with humans around campfires telling stories and discovering the unimaginable power of imagination. The cognitive revolution wasn't just a historical event. It was a shift in consciousness. The moment humans became aware of possibilities beyond the present, the ability to create, to plan, to cooperate, and to dream. And that gift is still the most powerful tool we carry today.
So what exactly is Sapiens? Is it just a history book, a science book, a philosophy book, or maybe it's a mirror? A mirror that shows us where we came from, how we got here, and perhaps where we might be going. You see, my friend, this book is not about dates and events. It's about us, about you, me, and every single human being who has ever lived. And that's why, when you listen carefully, it feels less like reading history and more like having a deep conversation about life itself. The author, Yuval Noah Harari, takes us on a journey through time, 70,000 years of human history. Imagine that for a second. 70,000 years. While your heartbeat is racing right now, while you're breathing in and out, life has been unfolding across thousands of generations before us. Sometimes when I think about it, I feel so small, but at the same time, I feel so deeply connected to this endless human story. The big arcs of the book. Now, Harari divides this journey into what I like to call the four great turning points of humanity. Each one completely reshaped who we are and how we live. And I want you to not just listen to them, but to feel them. To imagine yourself standing inside those moments as if you were there. The cognitive revolution, 70,000 years ago. This was the moment we humans learned the true magic of the mind, imagination, storytelling, cooperation. Think about it. Animals communicate, yes. Birds warn each other of predators, ants follow trails, dolphins whistled to each other. But only humans, only we could say, there is a God watching you, or this paper represents money, or that man is your king. That ability to create and believe in shared stories is what allowed us to cooperate in massive groups. 10 people? Any animal can do that. But 10,000 people believing in the same myth, the same flag, the same cause? That is uniquely human. That's the secret power of Sapiens. The agricultural revolution, about 12,000 years ago. Now here's where it gets interesting. We thought farming was an upgrade. Wheat, rice, corn, suddenly we could stay in one place, grow food and build villages. But, Harari flips the story. He says, maybe it wasn't us who domesticated wheat. Maybe wheat domesticated us. Think about it. We bent our backs, broke our bones, worked harder than ever before, all so that wheat could spread across the world. Before farming, humans were free wanderers. After farming, we became locked into cycles of labor, disease, and hierarchy. Isn't that strange? The thing we thought would make us free actually made us more trapped. The unification of humanity. Fast forward, humans are everywhere. But how do you unite millions of strangers? The answer? Shared myths, empires, money, religions, laws. Money, just a story we all agree on. Religions, stories we dedicate our lives to. Nations, stories we're willing to die for. Harari makes us see that everything big in human society is built on fragile, invisible agreements. And yet, these invisible stories are more powerful than stone, steel, or even armies. And then came curiosity, the human hunger to not just accept stories, but to question them, to explore, to discover. From Galileo's telescope to Einstein's equations, from Darwin's theory to DNA sequencing. Science reshaped the world, but not just science alone. Science combined with empire and money. That's what created the modern world. The factories, the smartphones, the internet you're listening on right now. It's all rooted in that hunger to know. So, my friend, Sapiens is not just telling us history, it's asking us, what does it mean to be human? Are we truly happier than our ancestors? Did progress really make life better or just different? And most haunting of all, if we created all these myths, money, nations, gods, then what story will we create next? Because the truth is, our future depends on the stories we choose to believe today. Blombos Cave, the oldest symbols of thought. Let's travel for a moment back in time, 77,000 years ago. Imagine yourself walking along the southern coast of Africa. The waves are crashing on the shore, the air smells of salt and smoke from small campfires. And there, hidden in the cliffs by the sea, is a cave. This is Blombos Cave. Today, it looks like just another hole in the rocks. But inside, archaeologists discovered something astonishing. Pieces of ochre stone carved with deliberate cross-hatched patterns. Lines scratched carefully, almost like a grid. At first glance, you might think, so what? They're just lines. But wait. These marks are not random. They're organized, repeated, designed. And here's the mind-blowing part. They are 77,000 years old. That's tens of thousands of years before writing, before farming, before cities. Think about what this means. Our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were already thinking symbolically. They weren't just reacting to the world, they were shaping it in their minds. Why this matters? No other species does this. Chimps crack nuts with stones. Crows bend wires into hooks. Dolphins whistle signals. But none of them carve symbols into stone for no practical reason. These lines in Blombos Cave don't hunt animals, they don't make fire, they don't build shelter. They're not useful in the survival sense. They represent something deeper, the birth of abstract thought. It's almost like the first whisper of art, the first echo of culture, the first time a human said, "This mark means something beyond itself." The symbolic leap. Anthropologists call this the symbolic leap, the moment humans crossed from living in the physical world into living also in a mental one. From then on, objects could carry meaning. That ochre stone wasn't just a rock, it was a message, a symbol. Maybe it represented a clan. Maybe it was a ritual mark. Maybe it was just a doodle, a spark of creativity. We may never know, but one thing is certain. Whoever carved it was thinking in a way no animal ever had. Now close your eyes and imagine you are that human. You sit in the cave, a piece of ochre in your hand. You take another stone and start scratching, line after line, crisscrossing. The firelight flickers against the cave walls. Children watch you curiously. You don't say much, but everyone feels something as the marks appear. You're not just scratching stone, you're scratching meaning. You're saying, look, this is our mark. This is us. And maybe, just maybe, in that moment, the first artist was born. Fast forward to today. Look around you. Everywhere you go, you see symbols. The Nike swoosh, the Apple logo, the cross, the dollar sign. None of these things are real in the survival sense. You can't eat a logo, you can't drink a brand. And yet people live, die, and dedicate their lives to these symbols. It all began with a simple set of cross-hatched lines on a stone in Blombos Cave. Archaeologist Christopher Henshelwood, who studied Blombos, said it best. These carvings mark the earliest known evidence of humans' ability to store and transmit symbolic information. In other words, this is not just the past, it's the beginning of your mind. So what can we take from this? Symbols are powerful. They shape tribes, societies, nations. They shape your own life. Think about the goals you write down, the vision boards you make, even the tattoos you wear. Each is your own version of those cross-hatched lines. 77,000 years later, humans are still scratching meaning into the world, still saying, "This is us," still creating stories bigger than survival. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine stepping into a cave so dark, so ancient, that no human had entered it for tens of thousands of years. The air is heavy, untouched, almost sacred. Your torchlight flickers across the walls, and suddenly you see them. Horses galloping, lions hunting, rhinos charging, mammoths, bison, bears, all alive, but drawn in ochre and charcoal. This is Chauvet Cave in southern France, discovered only in 1994, yet created nearly 36,000 years ago, the oldest, most breathtaking gallery in the history of humankind. These paintings are not just pictures, they are stories frozen in stone. They are the voices of our ancestors who had no paper, no screens, no pens, yet they had the urge to express, to tell, to remember. Yuval Harari in Sapiens argues that our species' greatest leap was the ability to create and share stories. Chauvet is proof of this. Unlike the Blombos engravings, which were abstract, the Chauvet paintings are narratives. These are not random doodles. They show movement, hunting scenes, herds in motion. Some animals are drawn with multiple legs, as if to suggest running. This was humanity's first cinema. Our ancestors had already discovered the art of storytelling through images. The big idea? Humans live by stories. Stories shape our identity, our beliefs, and our unity as a species. Without stories, there is no religion, no nations, no companies, no culture. Archaeologists studying Chauvet Cave found over 1,000 images: lions, bears, mammoths, panthers, owls. Interestingly, many of these animals were not hunted by humans at the time. Why paint them then? Because these paintings weren't just about food. They were about meaning. They may have been part of rituals, myths, or shamanic visions. A 2016 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences suggested that these paintings were carefully planned, using torchlight to create shadows and depth, almost like an early special effect. This means they weren't just decoration, they were performances. Imagine sitting in the darkness of the cave, the flicker of fire making lions leap and rhinos charge on the walls. It must have felt magical, even divine. Think about this. Today, when you sit in a cinema, lights dim and a giant screen lights up with images of running horses, superheroes, or love stories, you are doing the exact same thing our ancestors did in Chauvet Cave. Every mural, every comic book, every movie poster, these are just echoes of what started on those walls. Your Instagram feed, your Netflix watch list, they are all modern cave walls, covered with images to tell stories, to make meaning, to connect. Let me confess something. The first time I saw photos of Chauvet Cave, I felt chills. Horses with wide eyes, drawn with such detail. Lions captured mid-hunt. I thought, how could people 36,000 years ago see the world so beautifully? And then I realized they weren't so different from us. They loved stories. They needed stories. They needed to pass on knowledge, warn children of dangers, inspire courage, and maybe just to feel less alone. Because when you draw a lion on a cave wall,
You are not only fighting the fear of the lion outside, you are taming it in your imagination. So what do we learn from Chauvet Cave? Storytelling is survival. It passes wisdom, fear, and hope to the next generation. Art is not luxury, it is necessity. Even when food was scarce, humans painted. Why? Because meaning is as important as bread. Your words, your drawings, your ideas, they shape reality. Nations, religions, companies, everything starts as a story.
Imagine a cold, dark cave in Germany, deep in the Swabian Alps, more than 40,000 years ago. The Ice Age grips the land. Mammoths roam the frozen plains, cave lions stalk the shadows, and small bands of humans huddle around fires, fighting for survival. Now picture this. Deep inside the cave, someone takes a piece of mammoth ivory and begins carving. Not a spear, not a tool, but something else. Hours turn into days, days into weeks, and slowly, from ivory and imagination, emerges a figure, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a lion. This is the Lion Man of Stadel, the oldest known figurative sculpture in human history. About 12 inches tall, carved 40,000 years ago. And with it, something revolutionary was born: mythology. Harari tells us that the Lion Man represents a giant leap in the cognitive revolution. Why? Because it shows humans imagining something that does not exist in nature. A lion-headed man does not walk the earth. You cannot hunt it, you cannot eat it, you cannot touch it. And yet, here it is, carved in ivory, alive in human imagination. This, my friends, is mythology, the ability to believe in things beyond reality. And this skill, Harari argues, is what allowed humans to build shared fictions, religions, nations, laws, money. All of them exist only in our collective imagination. Archaeologists discovered the Lion Man in the Stadel Cave in 1939, but it was reconstructed decades later, piece by piece. Today, it stands as a symbol of the earliest religious or mythological thought. Scholars believe it might have been used in rituals, representing a spirit, a god, or a guardian figure. Some even argue it reflects the first evidence of shamanism, the belief that humans could transform into animals, crossing the line between physical and spiritual worlds. What's fascinating is that around the same time, across Europe, humans created Venus figurines, exaggerated statues of women symbolizing fertility. This suggests that early humans were filling their world with mythical beings, forces, and symbols far beyond the physical. Think about it, we still live with lion men today. The gods of Egypt, Ra, Anubis, half human, half animal. The Hindu deity, Narasimha, half man, half lion. Marvel superheroes, Spider-Man, Black Panther, humans fused with animal powers. Even brand mascots, like Tony the Tiger or the MGM Lion, roar. We are still inventing hybrids, myths, and larger-than-life figures. Why? Because they embody qualities we admire: strength, courage, divinity, and give us something greater to believe in. Let me tell you something personal. The first time I saw a photo of the Lion Man, I felt goosebumps. That ivory figure, so small, yet so powerful. I imagined the carver, sitting in that frozen cave, chiseling every line with care. Why would someone spend weeks carving something they couldn't eat or use? Unless it meant something deeper. Unless it gave the tribe strength, identity, or a story to cling to. And that's when it hit me. Maybe the real power of humans
was never our muscles or weapons, but our ability to create myths that unite us. So what do we learn from the Lion Man? Imagination creates reality. A lion-headed man may not exist, but the belief in it shaped rituals, culture, and identity. Myths unite people. Shared stories give tribes, and later civilizations, a reason to cooperate. Your beliefs matter. Whether in a god, a nation, or an idea, it is belief that transforms individuals into communities.
The birth of language. How words became power. Have you ever thought about this? The most powerful weapon in the world is not the sword, not the gun, not even the nuclear bomb. The most powerful weapon is a story. And stories live inside words. Words can make you laugh. Words can make you cry. Words can start wars, and words can heal hearts. But here's the question. When did humans first discover this magic? When did we learn that by shaping sounds with our tongues, we could shape the world itself? Let's step back about 70,000 years ago to the moment when language was born. In Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari argues that language is humanity's superpower. Other animals communicate, yes. Monkeys scream warnings, bees dance directions, dolphins whistle. But only humans can say, "Yesterday, I saw a lion by the river. Tomorrow, we should hunt near the cliffs." Or even more magical, the lion's spirit protects our tribe. Do you see it? Language doesn't just describe reality, it invents it. That's the big idea. Words became power because they allowed humans to share stories, both real and imagined, that could unite thousands of strangers into one tribe. Scientists believe that language developed gradually, but around 70,000 years ago, something changed in the brain of Homo sapiens. The FOP2 gene linked to speech became more refined, giving humans the ability to produce complex sounds. Anthropologists point out that language is not just about sounds, it's about syntax, the ability to arrange words into infinite combinations. A monkey's warning cry can say, "Eagle," but only humans can say, "Be careful, because yesterday an eagle attacked near the big tree, and tomorrow we should build a shelter." This ability to tell stories across time, past, present, and future, was revolutionary. And then came the biggest breakthrough: gossip. Harari writes that gossip was the first form of social glue. By talking about others, who's trustworthy, who's selfish, tribes could cooperate in larger groups without personally knowing everyone. Think about it. Gossip didn't die, it just changed form. Today, it's WhatsApp messages, Instagram comments, office rumors, celebrity news. Gossip is how humans track trust and reputation. But it's more than gossip. Language is what creates nations. America exists because of words written in the Constitution. Religions exist because of scriptures. Money exists because we all agree on the story that this piece of paper or this digital number has value. Even your personal life, built on words. I love you. I quit. I forgive you. Simple words, but they shape your destiny. Let me share something personal. I remember the first time I gave a speech in front of a crowd. My voice was shaking, my hands sweating, but as I spoke, something shifted. I saw people nodding, smiling, connecting, and I thought, wow, this is power. Not the power to control, but the power to connect. And when I look back, I realize this is what our ancestors discovered. When one person spoke and another listened, something invisible passed between them. Trust, belief, belonging. That's why words matter so deeply, because they don't just carry information, they carry souls. Imagine a place so old, so mysterious that it rewrites everything we thought we knew about human history. A place built not after farming, but before. A place that whispers, maybe our hunger for meaning came before our hunger for bread. This place is Göbekli Tepe, a vast stone temple buried under a hill in Turkey, standing tall for over 11,000 years. Yes, you heard that right. Older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. When the world was still full of hunters and gatherers, before villages and kingdoms, human hands carved massive stone pillars with animals, spirits, and symbols we still don't fully understand. But why? Why would people who had no farms, no cities, no rulers come together to build something so massive? What drove them? Hunger? Fear? Or was it something deeper? The call of the divine, the yearning for connection, the birth of belief itself. Today, my friend, we dive into the mystery of the world's first temple. Yuval Noah Harari in Sapiens challenges our timeline of civilization. We always believed first came farming, then villages, then religion, then temples. But Göbekli Tepe says no. It flips the story upside down. The builders of Göbekli Tepe weren't farmers. They were still roaming the land, hunting gazelles and gathering wild berries. Yet they gathered here from miles around to carve 10-ton stone pillars, arranging them in perfect circles. Harari's big idea is this: it wasn't agriculture that gave birth to religion. It was religion that gave birth to agriculture. Humans first united in worship, in myth, in ritual, and only then, to support those gatherings, did they settle down and grow food. Think about that. The very bread on your table, the wheat in your fields, might not exist if our ancestors hadn't first bowed before the unseen. Archaeologists, led by Klaus Schmidt in the 1990s, unearthed Göbekli Tepe from a hill that villagers thought was just a mound. Beneath the soil were giant T-shaped pillars, some towering 20 feet high, weighing up to 50 tons. They were carved with foxes, scorpions, boars, vultures, and mysterious abstract signs. And here's the most shocking part. There's no evidence of farming nearby at the time. These people were nomadic. They didn't live in villages, yet they came together to build a temple that required thousands of coordinated hands. And pause. And then, softly, modern research even suggests Göbekli Tepe may have been a pilgrimage site. People might have walked for days, weeks, just to reach it. Imagine the effort, the cooperation, the shared vision. What story, what faith must have driven them? Think about today. Millions gather at Mecca, at the Vatican, at Varanasi. Humans still walk for days, crossing oceans, to be in places that connect them to something higher. Göbekli Tepe shows us this isn't new. From the beginning, humans craved meaning more than comfort. They would rather starve, rather break their backs dragging stones, than live without ritual, without story, without the sacred. Even today, don't we spend billions on stadiums, monuments, churches, temples? It seems we never stopped building Göbekli Tepes. We just made them bigger, shinier, but the heartbeat is the same. Gently, storytelling tone.
I remember once visiting a small temple in my hometown. It wasn't grand, no carvings, no pillars, just a single old tree with cloth tied around it. Yet people came every evening, lighting lamps, whispering prayers, and I thought, this tree is no different from Göbekli Tepe. The scale is smaller, but the yearning is the same. People don't gather because they need food. They gather because they need hope. They need connection. They need to believe that their life is part of something greater. And maybe that's what makes us truly human.
Let me ask you something. What do you think humans talk about the most? Is it food? Danger? Plans? No. The answer, surprisingly, is gossip. Yes, gossip. Who's in love with whom? Who cheated whom? Who can be trusted and who cannot? Now, you might think gossip is silly, even destructive, but what if I told you gossip is the very glue that held early humans together? What if gossip wasn't a weakness, but the secret weapon that allowed us to form tribes, build alliances, and outsmart every other species? And then there's this number, 150, known as Dunbar's number. It's the limit of how many people you can really know, like really know, beyond just recognizing their face. Beyond this number, everything starts to fall apart. Unless we find a new way to bind ourselves together. Yuval Harari explains that language wasn't just useful for shouting lion or food over there. That's obvious. Other animals can also signal danger or food. What made human language unique was its ability to share information about relationships. Language let us say, "Don't trust him, he's a liar. She's brave, she saved me yesterday. They're plotting something, watch out." This ability to exchange social information allowed humans to form groups larger than any other primates. But here is where Robin Dunbar, an evolutionary anthropologist, enters the picture. He discovered that primates spend most of their time grooming, picking lice, cleaning each other's fur. Grooming isn't just hygiene, it's bonding. It says, "I trust you. I like you. You're with me." Now, grooming works fine for monkeys, but it doesn't scale. A chimpanzee can groom maybe 10 to 20 others. Beyond that, the group falls apart. Humans, however, found a shortcut. Gossip is verbal grooming. Instead of picking lice, we pick stories. Instead of scratching fur, we scratch curiosity. Talking about others, sharing reputations, it's what allowed us to scale our tribes. Dunbar's studies of primate brain sizes and group sizes revealed a consistent pattern. The bigger the neocortex, the larger the stable group. For humans, that number hovers around 150. He called it Dunbar's number, and it's eerily accurate. Most military units are capped at around 150 soldiers. Many ancient villages averaged about 150 people. Even modern businesses, when they grow beyond 150, often splinter or require new management layers. And here's the kicker. When groups grow larger than 150, gossip alone isn't enough. That's when we invented myths, religions, and shared stories to bind people together beyond face-to-face trust. In other words, gossip was the training wheels. Stories became the bicycle. Think about social media. What dominates your feed? Gossip. Celebrity scandals, office rumors, family drama. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's all modern grooming. We don't pick lice anymore, we pick likes. And Dunbar's number still haunts us. How many friends do you have on Facebook? Maybe 1,000? But how many do you really know? Likely about 150. The same limit that guided hunter-gatherer tribes still guides your digital tribe today. I remember once in school, a rumor spread that two classmates were secretly dating. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. Everyone was buzzing. Suddenly, alliances shifted, jokes flew, reputations were made. The entire classroom was alive, not because of facts, but because of gossip. And when I think about it, that's exactly how our ancestors must have felt, huddled around a fire, whispering about who cheated during the hunt, who betrayed trust, who was worthy of leading the next expedition. Gossip wasn't idle talk, it was survival. It helped people decide who to trust, who to follow. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing before the body of someone you love. The fire crackles. The air is heavy. You place flowers, beads, or maybe a stone beside them. Why? It's because deep inside, you feel they are not truly gone, that somehow their journey continues. From the very beginning, humans didn't just bury the dead to hide the smell or protect the living. They buried with care, with flowers, tools, weapons, even food. That small act of placing something in a grave was humanity's first prayer. Faith was not born in temples, it was written first in burials. Yuval Harari reminds us that one of the clearest signs of modern human consciousness is the way we treated our dead. Neanderthals buried their loved ones too, but Sapiens took it further, with ritual, with offerings, with art. Think about it. Why would someone place beads, weapons, or flowers with the dead, unless they believed the dead could somehow use them? Unless they believed in an afterlife, or at least in something unseen. The big idea here is that burials were the first evidence of shared faith, proof that humans weren't just living in the present moment, but were already imagining a world beyond death. And with that imagination came one of the most powerful tools of all: religion. Archaeologists discovered one of the earliest symbolic burials in Israel, Kefez Cave, dating back almost 100,000 years. The remains of a young child were found, carefully buried with deer antlers placed on top. In another site, Shanidar Cave in Iraq, researchers found pollen grains around a Neanderthal burial, suggesting flowers had been laid there. Even Neanderthals may have felt that flicker of reverence. But Sapiens went further, creating elaborate graves with beads, shells, pigments, tools, and ornaments. Some graves show signs of red ochre sprinkled over the body, a symbol of life, blood, rebirth. These aren't just burials. They are whispers of hope. They are humans saying, death is not the end. Even today, across cultures, burials and funerals are powerful rituals. We place flowers, photos, letters. We light candles, whisper prayers, tell stories of the one we lost. When you attend a funeral, you can feel it. The silence, the weight, the collective yearning that maybe, just maybe, there is something beyond. And think about cemeteries. Each gravestone is not just a marker, it's a story, a belief that the person mattered, that their memory endures. From Kefez Cave to modern cemeteries, the ritual is the same: to face death with faith, not just fear. I remember once attending the funeral of a friend. The room was heavy with grief, but what struck me most wasn't the sadness. It was the way people shared stories. They laughed, they cried, they remembered moments of joy. And then, someone placed a small note in the coffin. Just a few words. See you again. That note broke me because it carried the same hope humans have carried for tens of thousands of years, that death isn't the final chapter, but just a page turn. And when I thought about it later, I realized this hope is what gave humans strength. Without it, grief would crush us. With it, once upon a time, we were not alone. Picture this: Europe, 50,000 years ago. You step into a forest, the firelight dancing on the trees, and across the valley, you see another figure. They look human, broad face, strong body, deep eyes. But they are not you. They are Neanderthals. For more than 200,000 years, Neanderthals ruled Europe. They were stronger than us, better adapted to the cold, and skilled hunters. In a fight, one Neanderthal could probably overpower any Sapiens. And yet, they are gone, extinct. Their bones lie in caves, while we, fragile, smaller, weaker Sapiens, went on to conquer the world. Why? Why did we win and they vanish? Harari tells us that the answer isn't simple. Neanderthals weren't dumb. In fact, their brains were slightly larger than ours. They made tools, cared for the sick, even buried their dead. But Sapiens had something different, something invisible. We had the ability to create shared fictions. We could cooperate in larger numbers, not just with family, but with strangers through stories, gossip, and myths. Neanderthals lived in small bands. Sapiens could unite tribes of hundreds, even thousands. And when it came to survival, numbers matter more than muscles. The future belonged not to the strongest, but to the most cooperative. Archaeologists found signs that Sapiens and Neanderthals overlapped in Europe for thousands of years. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes they interbred. Modern humans still carry 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. But genetic evidence shows Sapiens spread rapidly, while Neanderthal populations shrank. Why? One theory is adaptability. Sapiens built networks, exchanged knowledge, and innovated faster. Neanderthals, isolated in small groups, couldn't compete. Another theory, art and imagination. While Neanderthals made tools, Sapiens painted caves, carved figurines, created rituals. This symbolic thinking gave us unity, identity, and long-term vision. In short, Sapiens didn't just live. We dreamed, and that made all the difference. Think of businesses. A small team with strong individuals can survive, but a company that builds culture, vision, and shared belief can scale to thousands, even millions. Or think of sports. The best athlete doesn't always win. The best team does. Our ancestors faced the same truth. Strength helps, but shared imagination wins wars. I remember playing football as a kid. There was one boy, strong, fast, unbeatable in one-on-one. But when he played alone, his team always lost. Meanwhile, the quieter kids who worked together always won. Looking back, I realize that was the story of Neanderthals and Sapiens. They were strong individuals. But we were a team. And when survival is at stake, teamwork beats strength. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world that doesn't exist yet. Maybe it's a city floating in the clouds, or maybe it's you, 5 years from now, finally living that dream life you secretly hold inside your chest. See? You just created something real in your brain, even though it doesn't exist out here in the physical world. That, my friend, is the power of imagination. It's invisible, but it's the most powerful force that has shaped our species. Empires, religions, money, nations, all of it exists because humans imagined it first. But how? Where inside our brain does this magic come from? That's where neuroscience enters the stage. Yuval Noah Harari in Sapiens says something bold. Fiction has been the most effective force in history. Think about it. Lions, tigers, or chimpanzees, they can fight, hunt, and survive, but they can't imagine something that doesn't exist. Humans, however, can imagine gods, laws, companies, nations, and futures. But why? The answer lies inside that wrinkled lump of tissue between your ears, specifically the prefrontal cortex. Neuroscience shows this part of the brain gives us the ability to project ourselves forward in time, to picture scenarios, and to simulate what-ifs. It's like having a movie theater inside your head, where you are the writer, director, and main character, all at once. Here's something fascinating. Neuroscientists at Harvard discovered that when we daydream, our brain activates the default mode network, a set of brain regions that light up when you're not focused on the outside world. Instead, you're wandering inward. And here's the kicker. The same neural circuits used for remembering the past are also used for imagining the future. That's why your imagination feels so real. Your brain reuses memory systems to build possible worlds. Another study from Stanford showed that children with richer imaginative play actually developed stronger problem-solving skills later in life. Excitedly. So yes, those moments when kids create a kingdom out of cardboard boxes, they're literally training their brains to invent the future. Let's bring this down to earth. When Elon Musk talks about colonizing Mars, you might think it's impossible, but he's just doing what our ancestors always did. Imagine a world that isn't real yet. Or think about every startup founder who sits in a garage picturing a billion-dollar company when they only have a laptop and coffee. That's imagination turning into reality. Even on a personal level, you imagine yourself passing an exam, getting married, building a house, or healing from heartbreak. That vision shapes your decisions today. I remember when I was a kid, lying under the stars, I would imagine myself standing in front of thousands of people speaking. Of course, at that time, I could barely talk confidently in class. But that image, that imagination, pushed me to grow into it. And maybe you felt it too. Those quiet, secret movies that play in your head when nobody is watching. Those are not just fantasies, they're seeds. Some of them become forests. For 2.5 million years, our ancestors wandered the earth. They hunted wild animals, gathered fruits and nuts, and lived under the open sky. Their days were uncertain, yes, but also free. They worked only a few hours, they had varied diets, and they roamed wherever the earth provided. And then something happened. Around 10,000 years ago, in the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia, the banks of the Nile, the Indus, and the Yellow River, humans made a choice, or perhaps a mistake, that changed everything. They stopped wandering. They bent their backs to the soil. They began to sow seeds, to water fields, to wait for the harvest. To us, this sounds like progress. Farming seems like the dawn of civilization. But Harari calls it something else. The biggest fraud in history. Why? Because humans didn't domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated us. Yuval Noah Harari argues that the agricultural revolution was not a leap forward, but a trap. On the surface, it looks like an incredible breakthrough. Instead of chasing food every day, humans learned to control it. They planted wheat, barley, rice, and maize. They tamed goats, sheep, cows, and chickens. Suddenly, they had more food than ever before. Populations exploded, villages grew, empires would one day rise. But beneath the surface, this progress came at a devastating cost. Foragers had diverse diets: meat, berries, nuts, fish. Farmers depended on a single crop. Wheat and rice filled their bellies, but left them weaker, shorter, and prone to disease. Archaeologists discovered that early farmers had worse teeth, weaker bones, and shorter lifespans than hunter-gatherers. A hunter-gatherer might work 4 to 6 hours a day. Farming demanded dawn-to-dusk labor, plowing, weeding, watering, guarding crops. Instead of moving freely with the seasons, people were now chained to fields. Farming produced more food, yes, but that food led to more babies. Populations grew, and soon there was never enough. Every harvest was stretched thinner, and people worked harder just to survive. Humanity entered a cycle: more food to more people to more hunger. Harari flips the story. Wheat used humans as its servants. Think about it. This fragile plant can't grow without constant care. So humans cleared forests, dug canals, carried water, and broke their backs, all so wheat could thrive. Softly, almost ironic, wheat didn't serve us. We served wheat. Archaeologists and anthropologists have uncovered powerful evidence that supports Harari's claim the agricultural revolution was not the blessing we imagine. When scientists compared the bones of hunter-gatherers with those of early farmers, the results were shocking. Foragers were taller, stronger, and had healthier teeth. Farmers, on the other hand, showed signs of arthritis, slipped discs, tooth decay, and malnutrition. In fact, average height dropped by almost 6 inches after the shift to farming. Living in one place with stored food attracted rodents and insects. Add domesticated animals, goats, sheep, cows, and humans were suddenly exposed to new diseases. Measles, smallpox, and influenza all trace back to the agricultural revolution. Hunter-gatherer women often spaced children 3 to 4 years apart because moving with many babies was impossible. Farming changed that. With more food, women gave birth more often. Populations skyrocketed. Yet, paradoxically, most people were still hungry because there were simply too many mouths to feed. At Çatalhöyük in Turkey, one of the earliest farming towns, researchers found cramped homes packed tightly together, showing how farming forced people into close, stressful living. At Jericho, one of the world's first cities, evidence of walls and towers shows how early farmers had to defend their grain from raiders. Violence and warfare became a way of life. Think of it. 10,000 years ago, wheat covered a tiny patch of the Middle East. Today, it covers 870,000 square kilometers of the planet. Wheat spread like wildfire, not because it was strong, but because humans became its unpaid laborers. When you look at history through this lens, it's not humans who won in the agricultural revolution. It was the crops. The story of farming isn't just ancient history, it's still with us today. Think about modern life. Most of us work long hours for money that buys food, shelter, and comfort. We're tied to schedules, bills, and responsibilities. Sounds familiar? That's the same trap our ancestors fell into with farming. More security, yes, but far less freedom. Even today, industrial agriculture focuses on a few dominant crops: wheat, rice, corn, and soy. Entire regions depend on them. A bad harvest or pest outbreak can trigger massive shortages. Humans are still at the mercy of the plants we grow, just like 10,000 years ago. The agricultural revolution started the cycle. More food, more people, more work. Modern society repeats it. Population booms, urbanization, and limited resources force us into constant effort, stress, and competition. We are still living inside the population trap that farming created. Social media, tech gadgets, corporate jobs, all of these modern tools promise ease and happiness, yet they often create more stress, less connection, and constant work to keep up. Farming taught humans to trade freedom for stability, and the pattern repeats today. In a way, every time we rush to make life easier, we are still bending our backs for something bigger than ourselves, just as our ancestors did for wheat. I remember visiting a small village in the countryside. The fields stretched endlessly under the sun, golden waves of wheat swaying with the wind. Farmers bent over day after day, tending the soil. I watched them pause for a moment, wiping sweat from their brow, and I couldn't help but think, this is the same story humans have been living for 10,000 years. It's ironic, isn't it? The same grains that filled the stomachs of our ancestors still demand our labor, our attention, our constant effort. Freedom traded for stability. Hours of toil for a little certainty. And yet, there's beauty in it too. The same soil that trapped humans also allowed art, civilization, music, and writing to flourish. Without farming, there might not have been villages, cities, or stories like the ones I share with you today. I sometimes wonder, if our ancestors had stayed hunter-gatherers, would we even have smartphones? Would we even be sitting here listening to this story? Perhaps in chasing the wheat, we lost freedom, but we also gained a world we could never have imagined. And maybe that's the paradox of human history. Every progress comes with a cost. Every step forward demands a price. We keep walking anyway, because imagination, hope, and survival propel us forward, just like they always have. Imagine a world where every human lives only in their small village, surrounded by familiar faces. The people you meet every day are your family, your neighbors, your friends. Strangers are dangerous. Cooperation beyond your tribe? Almost impossible. And then, something extraordinary begins. Over thousands of years, humans start imagining things that don't exist. Money, gods, empires. They start trusting people they've never met. They trade across deserts, rivers, and seas. They follow laws, kings, and ideals that exist only in stories. Humans are the only species capable of this. Only we can cooperate in millions, guided by shared myths. And in that ability lies the secret to why the world became one, even before modern globalization. Harari explains that for most of history, humans lived in small groups, rarely interacting with outsiders. But slowly, larger networks of cooperation began to form. Tribes became chiefdoms, chiefdoms became kingdoms, and kingdoms became empires. What made this possible? Shared beliefs in imagined orders. Money only works because people believe in it. Religions unite millions under one God, one law. Empires expand because subjects accept the emperor's authority. Through these shared myths, humans went from local to global. Eventually, the whole world became connected through trade, migration, conquest, and ideas. Humans unite through stories, not just biology. Two strangers trust each other because they both believe in the value of money or the authority of law. Empires brought together diverse people under one system. They spread languages, cultures, and technologies across vast lands. Major religions, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, created moral communities. They allowed people to cooperate on a huge scale, even across nations. Gold, silver, and later paper money let strangers trade without knowing each other. It became the world's first truly global system. Over time, these forces connected villages, cities, and continents. Today's globalization is just the latest stage of a process that began thousands of years ago. The Persian Empire, 550 to 330 BCE. At its height, it connected 50 million people, about 44% of the world's population at the time. The Royal Road allowed messages to travel 1,700 miles in just a week, showing how infrastructure unified distant regions. The Roman Empire, 27 BCE to 476 CE, created common law, language, Latin, and currency across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Roman coins with emperors' faces were accepted across continents, showing how money created trust. Christianity, by the 4th century CE, it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, creating unity across diverse peoples. Islam. From the 7th century onward, Islam spread from Arabia to Spain and India. The Hajj pilgrimage still gathers millions of strangers yearly, proving the power of shared belief to unify humanity. Buddhism spread through trade routes like the Silk Road, showing religion could travel with merchants as a cultural glue. Lydian coins, 600 BCE, first standardized metal coins which revolutionized trade by creating trust between strangers. The Spanish silver dollar, 1500s to 1800s, the first global currency, used from Europe to Asia. Found in archaeological sites from the Americas to China, proving global trade networks long before modern banks. The Silk Road, 130 BCE to 1453 CE, linked China, India, Persia, and Europe not just with goods like silk and spices, but with ideas, languages, and religions. The Columbian Exchange, 1492 onward. After Columbus, goods, crops, and diseases flowed between the Old World and the New World. Crops like potatoes from the Americas became staples in Europe, reshaping diets and societies. Anthropological evidence of shared myths. Studies show humans trust strangers more if they share a belief system. Experiments in economic games reveal that people are more generous toward others who share the same religion or symbols. National flags and passports. A small booklet with stamps lets you cross borders not because the paper itself has power, but because billions of people agree to trust it. Without that shared belief, borders would collapse overnight. US dollar as global currency. Whether in New York, Nairobi, or New Delhi, the dollar is accepted. A piece of green paper unites economies worldwide. Olympics and World Cup. Every 4 years, billions of people tune in, waving flags and singing anthems. Sports themselves don't unite humanity, but the shared rituals and symbols do. Technology platforms, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Billions of strangers connect daily without knowing each other, yet trust the shared, imagined order of the platform's rules. Human rights. We say all humans are equal. This is not a law of physics, it's an idea millions of us choose to believe. Yet because we believe it, nations pass laws, courts make rulings, and societies hold together. When I think about unification, I often remember how simple symbols connect strangers. Once I was traveling and lost my way in a foreign city where I didn't speak the language. I noticed a child wearing a football jersey of my favorite team. We didn't exchange words, but we smiled, and instantly I felt a thread of connection. This small moment reminded me of Harari's insight. We humans build bridges not only with roads and trade, but with stories, symbols, and shared myths. They allow us to feel trust even in a world of billions. It makes me reflect. In our daily lives, we constantly rely on invisible agreements, trusting our money in banks, trusting digital platforms to keep our data, trusting strangers to follow traffic rules. These are all fragile illusions, yet together they hold up civilization. Imagine standing in a world just a few centuries ago. The year is 1500. If you became sick, people believed it was because of demons or imbalanced humors in your body. If lightning struck a tree, it was said to be the wrath of gods. And if you asked anyone whether humans could fly, they'd laugh and call it madness. But then, something shifted. A quiet revolution began, not with armies or empires, but with questions. Simple, stubborn questions. What if the Earth is not the center of the universe? What if diseases have natural causes? What if the world can be measured, tested, and understood? It was as if humanity suddenly put on a new pair of glasses. We stopped accepting every story we were told and began searching for proof. Out of this curiosity came telescopes, microscopes, experiments, and theories. Copernicus pointed his telescope to the heavens and whispered, "We are not the center." Galileo challenged the church by insisting that truth could be observed. Newton looked at an apple falling and saw a law that ruled the cosmos. This was the birth of modern science, a turning point so radical that it reshapes not just our knowledge, but our very way of living. From steam engines to airplanes, from vaccines to space exploration, the scientific revolution gave humans the power to control forces once thought to be divine. And here's the most astonishing part. It began not with answers, but with doubt, with courage, with the humility to say, "I do not know, but I can find out." Yuval Noah Harari describes the scientific revolution as one of the most pivotal turning points in human history, arguably as transformative as the cognitive and agricultural revolutions. But what makes it so unique? Before the 1500s, most people believed that all knowledge already existed in sacred texts, whether in the Bible, the Quran, or the writings of Aristotle. Scholars were seen not as discoverers, but as guardians of ancient wisdom. The scientific revolution flipped this on its head. For the first time, humans openly admitted, we don't know everything. This humility was radical. Instead of pretending to know, scientists set out to explore, test, and question the unknown. Truth was no longer handed down by priests or kings. It had to be measured, observed, and proven. Telescopes, compasses, microscopes, and mathematics became the new tools of authority. If it could be tested and replicated, it could be trusted. Science didn't grow in isolation. It was fueled by European exploration and colonization. As ships sailed to new lands, maps were drawn, plants were cataloged, medicines were tested, and guns were improved. Knowledge and power fed each other. Empires needed science, and science thrived with empire. Another pillar was money. Scientific discoveries were expensive. Who would fund expeditions, telescopes, and laboratories? Investors. Capitalism provided the resources to turn theories into technology, and technology into profits. It created a cycle where discovery fueled wealth, and wealth fueled discovery. Ancient civilizations often saw history as cyclical. Golden ages rise, then fall, and rise again. But science introduced the idea of linear progress, that knowledge grows, technology improves, and humanity can continually reach new heights. This belief underpins modern society. It's why we build universities, fund research, and dream of colonizing Mars. From controlling crops with fertilizers to splitting the atom, science gave humans the ability to manipulate nature on a scale no species had ever imagined. It turned us into what Harari calls gods with the intelligence of apes and the instincts of cavemen. For centuries, people believed Earth was the center of the universe. The church supported this geocentric model because it fit the idea of humans being central to God's creation. Nicholas Copernicus challenged this in his book On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres. He claimed the sun, not Earth, was the center. At first, his model was dismissed, but later evidence, especially from Galileo's telescope, confirmed it. This wasn't just a new fact, it was a new worldview. Galileo built a telescope and saw craters on the moon, spots on the sun, and moons orbiting Jupiter. These discoveries shattered the old idea that heavenly bodies were perfect and unchanging. For proving this, he was tried by the Inquisition and forced to recant. Yet his evidence spread, changing how we saw the cosmos forever. Newton united heaven and earth under one set of laws. The same force that made apples fall also kept planets in orbit. His Principia Mathematica provided a universal framework for physics, showing that the universe was not chaos, but a system governed by discoverable laws. In the 17th century, Anton van Leeuwenhoek crafted microscopes powerful enough to see bacteria and cells. Suddenly, diseases weren't punishments from God, but caused by tiny organisms. This opened the door to modern medicine, leading to vaccines, antiseptics, and germ theory. Captain James Cook's voyages weren't just about conquest. His ships carried scientists who mapped coastlines, cataloged plants, and studied new peoples. These expeditions turned the entire planet into a laboratory, merging empire with science. Within 2 centuries, the scientific revolution sparked the Industrial Revolution. Steam engines, railways, electricity, and factories all came from applying scientific knowledge to real-world problems. The result? An explosion in population, wealth, and power unlike anything before. Today, we still live in its shadow. From Einstein's relativity to CRISPR gene editing, each breakthrough traces back to the scientific revolution's core principle. Knowledge is not fixed. It grows through curiosity, testing, and evidence. That little device you carry everywhere? It's the child of centuries of science. From Newton's physics, which is needed for satellites, to Einstein's relativity, which is used in GPS, your phone wouldn't exist without the scientific revolution. Today, we casually board planes and fly across continents. For most of human history, flight was myth. But by applying physics, engineering, and chemistry, science turned dreams into Boeing jets and rockets to Mars. Vaccines, antibiotics, and surgical techniques have doubled our life expectancy. In 1500, the average human lived about 30 to 40 years. Today, it's over 70 globally. This is the direct fruit of observation, research, and experimentation. You check your phone and see it will rain tomorrow. Behind that simple forecast are satellites, algorithms, and meteorological models rooted in Newton's and Galileo's discoveries. Without science, we'd still rely on omens or farmers' folklore. Imagine a world without light bulbs, refrigerators, or the internet. Physics and chemistry discoveries turned raw energy into the power grids we depend on every second. Whether you trust Google Maps to guide you or a pregnancy test to give you results, you're relying on the scientific method. Our daily lives are full of invisible science that we don't even notice anymore. In 2020, the world witnessed science in action. Within months, a global team of scientists mapped a virus, developed vaccines, and distributed them at record speed.
The ability to respond came directly from centuries of scientific revolution mindset. Test, question, and improve. The year is 1700. You're in a quiet village. Horses clop gently along dirt roads. Farmers bend over fields, tilling soil by hand. At night, the only light is from candles or the pale moon. Life is slow, repetitive, almost unchanged for thousands of years. It's peaceful, but also predictable. Now, imagine fast-forwarding just a century. Woo! The air hums with something new, the clatter of machines, steam engines roaring like beasts of fire, trains slicing landscapes at speeds no human before could imagine. Factories rise like iron cathedrals, swallowing workers by the thousands. Cities throb with noise, smoke, possibility, chaos. This wasn't just progress, it was a revolution. The Industrial Revolution threw humanity out of the rhythm of nature and into the rhythm of machines. Suddenly, humans were no longer bound by muscle, wind, or water. We discovered a new kind of energy. Coal, steam, oil, electricity, the power to bend time and space to our will. But with that power came transformation. Railways, airplanes, telegraphs, mass production, capitalism at full throttle. Cities mushrooming into megacities overnight, entire societies uprooted. A peasant's child could now work in a factory, earn wages, live in a bustling world their ancestors wouldn't have dared dreamed of. And yet, with progress came new chains, pollution, colonial exploitation, harsh labor, the loss of old ways of life. The world became richer, faster, more connected, but also more unequal, unstable, dependent on machines. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just an era of invention, it was the birth of the modern world. Harari explains something truly profound. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just about machines. No, it was about how humans learned to control energy, production, and society in ways that reshaped everything we knew. For thousands of years, humans relied on muscle power, human and animal, wind and water. That was the limit. That was all we had. And then something shifted. The Industrial Revolution broke that ceiling wide open. Coal-powered steam engines, oil, electricity. Suddenly, we had limitless, concentrated energy. And oh, the possibilities. Trains, ships, factories, at scales no one could dream before. Production moved from tiny workshops to giant factories. Goods that once were rare became cheap, widely available. Textiles, steel, weapons, later cars and electronics. Ordinary people could buy more than they needed for the first time. But it wasn't free. Industry demanded investment. Banks, stock markets, investors, they became the pulse of progress. Profit drove invention. Invention created profit. Harari calls this a loop, a cycle that pushed global change faster than ever before. Steam engines shrank the world. Trains and ships moved goods and people faster than history had ever seen. The telegraph, the telephone. Suddenly, communication could leap across continents instantly. Millions abandoned farms for cities. Urban populations exploded. Time itself changed, no longer measured by sunrise or sunset, but by factory whistles and train schedules. Industrial power gave empires dominance. Colonies became raw material factories. Science fueled industry. Industry funded science. And the loop continued, forever changing the world. Electricity, automobiles, airplanes, computers. Life expectancy soared. Populations multiplied. The pace of change became exponential. Humanity entered what Harari calls a permanent revolution. Change itself became the only constant. The Industrial Revolution didn't just give us machines, it rewired human society. It changed how we live, work, think, even how we measure time. For thousands of years, life moved with the heartbeat of the earth. The rising sun told people when to wake. The setting sun told them when to rest. The sound of a hammer in a blacksmith's shop, the creak of a wooden wheel, the rhythm of scythes cutting through fields. Life was slow, familiar, almost eternal. Now imagine the year 1800. The air is no longer silent. It vibrates. The ground itself trembles. From the belly of coal-stained cities rise giant machines, iron beasts that breathe fire and exhale smoke. Factories loom like fortresses, their tall chimneys painting the sky black. Inside, hundreds of men, women, and even children bend over machines, their faces lit by sparks, their bodies exhausted by endless shifts. The smell of oil, the hiss of steam, the shrill whistle that tells you when to start, when to stop, when to live. This was not just progress. It was a new world, a world where the strength of muscle no longer ruled, a world where steam, coal, and electricity gave humans the power of giants, where a train could cross a country faster than a horse could cross a village, where cities expanded overnight, swallowing villages whole. For the peasant's child, there was awe. Look at the trains. Look at the light bulbs. Look at the endless cloth and shoes and bread. But there was also despair. Look at the smog that blocks the sun. Look at the men coughing black dust. Look at children working until their small hands bleed. The Industrial Revolution gave humanity wings and chains. It gave us hope and hunger. It created wealth on a scale never seen before, but also poverty in the shadows of factories. It built empires, but fueled wars. It was the moment when time itself was stolen from the sun and handed to the factory bell. And Harari reminds us, this wasn't just an age of machines, it was the birth of the modern soul. Restless, ambitious, hungry for more, never satisfied. Humanity entered a rhythm that never stopped, a rhythm we still live in today.